And Ibn Rushd was the last great philosophical rationalist. So he came about 50 years after al-Ghazali. From his work, we learned what Ghazali's main points were. And Ghazali's main points, I will summarize to you, and you'll see how they were so destructive of science and how they were to close the doors for further progress of Muslims.
And again, we have other clips from this idiot hoodlum. And in here, he claims that Imam al-Ghazali led to the decline of science in the Islamic world. Now, this is an Orientalist idea. It's a very old idea. It's nowadays, it's no longer even accepted in the West. And the idea was that Imam al-Ghazali brought orthodoxy, and therefore he led to the decline of the sciences, because he somehow was against the sciences, even though his works are completely the opposite. But this was an Orientalist idea. It's been refuted to hell, to be honest with you, and it's completely and utterly false. But the Orientalists in the beginning, in the 18th and 19th century, they were known to come up with ridiculous and preposterous ideas due to their Christian bias, and they wanted to show that every other tradition is lesser than them, because obviously they believed that other human beings are savages at that time, right? Apart from the white man. Now, Imam al-Ghazali in no way led to the decline of the sciences in the Islamic realm, and this is demonstrative by facts. So, for example, we know that al-Tusi was an extremely amazing scientist after Imam al-Ghazali, one of the most important astronomers in human history, not only Islamic history, in human history. Then you had al-Burgundy, and you had the scientists of the Samarkand Observatory, which came 3 centuries after Imam al-Ghazali, which came up with the first heliocentric models of the universe. It wasn't Copernicus that came up with them. That's just a westernized version of history. It was actually the Muslims who came up with the first ever heliocentric models in the Samarkand Observatory. Now, there were obviously other advancements, like for example in the Ottoman Empire, it was the first ever machines were created. They weren't like nowadays with electricity, obviously, but they didn't have electricity, but they made the first ever machines at that time. So the sciences flourished for centuries after Imam al-Ghazali. And then he goes on to say the completely idiotic and dumb idea that certain idiots that have no idea what they're talking about repeat, which is that Imam al-Ghazali was against science.
He didn't like mathematics. He said, okay, mathematics is maybe not irreligious, but it gives you a sense of intoxication. You do too much math, you think everything can be done by math, and then it makes you go a little cuckoo, and then you start losing your faith. And once there's too much logic and you start figuring out everything and become too rational, your faith goes out of the window.
And to show you, I have a quote from Imam al-Ghazali from The Deliverance of Error, which is one of his most famous books. And I think it's page 66, something like that, in which he says, "Great indeed is the crime against religion committed by anyone who supposes that Islam is to be championed by the denial of these mathematical sciences." Now, and before that, Imam al-Ghazali actually said that that maths gives you demonstrated facts that no wise man can deny after it is known. So Imam al-Ghazali himself was an extreme champion of deduction. He loved mathematics. And he is accusing Imam al-Ghazali of the crime that Imam al-Ghazali is saying is heinous himself, right? So it is completely ludicrous and preposterous. But obviously, Pervaiz Hoodhboy, he just listened to a couple of Orientalists, he listened to a couple of dumb idiots who said this, and he himself is illiterate, he can't read, he can't do anything. He has never opened a book about Islamic history, he has never listened to a book by a Muslim scholar. So obviously he has no clue. He's just going off his white overlords, whatever they say, and hence he just parrots around what they are saying, because he's a complete idiot and he has to be breastfed by the West with their nonsense. And Imam al-Ghazali was completely with maths. He was completely with science. He used maths. I mean, he was a philosopher. I mean, dude, he was a champion of deduction. I mean, how more simple can I be? Like, it's like explaining things to a little child. Now, and the quotes that he's probably referring to is that Imam al-Ghazali, even in the quote that he's probably referring to, because obviously he doesn't give anything because he's an idiot, he doesn't even know how to quote works, is a work in al-Ulum, in which Imam al-Ghazali says that even despite the praiseworthiness of maths, too much delving into it can have negative effects. Now, Imam al-Ghazali is talking about the ego It's a it's a spiritual message. Now, too much diving into any work can cause evil to arise. Imam al-Ghazali, I don't think he even uses evil, but maybe he does. But it can arise evil in the sense of you becoming arrogant, you thinking that you know everything. Imam al-Ghazali even says this about the scholars, that there are some scholars who will be questioned very harshly on the day of judgment, about actual orthodox scholars. Yeah, about, for example, muhaddithun and mutakallimun, that they will be questioned very harshly on the day of judgment because their knowledge led to their arrogance. And that is why he says that knowledge can actually be a disease of the heart. So it's a spiritual point. And obviously, Pervaiz Hoodhboy doesn't have the nuance to understand this. Imam al-Ghazali, throughout his book, throughout his works, he has praised maths, he has praised the sciences, and the Muslim world had made extreme advancements in the sciences after the death of Imam al-Ghazali, such as the examples that I gave. And this goes back to a further point that, and he makes this in his video, in that, you can call it a video, I'll call it butchery of Muslim intellectual history, in which he says that, you know, the Caliphs were somehow liberals, and they were somehow intellectual liberals, and therefore therefore sciences flourished in them.
Well, all this goes on, and it goes on with the open-minded liberal caliphs in charge, and there you have Jews, Christians, Nestorians, Muslims all working together.
I mean, the sciences flourished the most, by the way, during the Abbasid rule. All of the caliphs were extremely religious, and during the rule of al-Mamun, who was an extremely religious caliph, the house of Baghdad, I mean, come on, dude. How basic is this? And he refers to the Mutazliya as liberals, or as the caliphs at the time who supported the Mutazliya as liberals. Now, the problem with that is that, I mean, how were they liberal? The Mutazliya were mostly Hanafi, or they were very strict in their fiqh. So they had the death penalty. They had, you getting stoned for doing adultery. They had the death punishment for a person who commits apostasy. How the hell were they liberal? He thinks that disagreeing on certain points in theology makes you a liberal. I mean, for the love of God, you idiot, that would make the Wahhabis liberal. I mean, are the Wahhabis liberal? I mean, this is the nonsense that this person preaches. And he thinks, and he says that geniuses were punished. I mean, look at our history. The people who were punished throughout our history were the orthodoxy. I mean, have you not heard of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, you complete ignoramus? He was put in jail for, I think it was decades he was put in jail, because the caliph at the time was a Mutazili, right? He was from the group of heretics called the Mutazliya, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was obviously against them on theological points, and hence he had Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal put in jail. He had his most famous teacher, one of the greatest scholars to ever grace the earth, Imam al-Shafi rahimullah, put in jail too. And a few of his students were actually killed. The orthodoxy were killed because the heretics were in control, not because the orthodoxy were in control. And even when the orthodoxy were in control, you had people like Umar Khayyam. Yeah, you had people like Abu Bakr al-Razi. Like, they are overhyped. They weren't as, intellectual as, obviously the atheists make them seem. But they were heretics, and no one said anything to them. I mean, Ibn Sina, the philosopher, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, and all of those people, we regard them as heretics. They were complete geniuses, by the way. That doesn't mean that if we call them heretics that they weren't genius in their field. They were. But Ibn Sina wrote freely whatever he wrote. Ibn Rushd wrote freely whatever he wrote. Now, these individuals, they only disagreed with us on certain points in theology. So I'll give you an example. For example, Ibn Sina said that the universe was uncreated, yeah, and that there is no bodily resurrection. Now, how does these 2 points, I mean, just look at the nonsense over here. How does these 2 points make you a liberal? I mean, Yani, do you not have a brain, you complete idiot? And in terms of the Mutazliya, the main point that the Mutazliya, there were many points that we disagreed upon, but the main point on which, for example, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal debated them a lot and he was jailed, was, is the Quran created or not? Your brain is too small even to understand this theological dispute. But tell me, is the Quran being created or not created a liberal problem? It's a theological dispute that has absolutely nothing to do with liberalism. And I mean, Ibn Rushd was a Maliki in fiqh, in jurisprudence. he didn't bring anything new in fiqh. He was a Maliki. Like, they did everything as we did it. He was a normal individual in fiqh. He was actually orthodox in fiqh. The dispute that we had was theological. And so that is the absurdity of these individuals. The actual geniuses that was punished were the orthodoxy. There were no liberals in this conflict. Everyone was a devout Muslim. Ibn Sina was a devout Muslim. The Mutaziliya were devout Muslims. They used to pray, they used to fast. The Mutaziliya actually had very tough positions on individuals who didn't pray, on individuals who they deemed as had the Mutaziliya, the philosopher. None of them were liberals, and I mean this is such an idiotic statement by this guy. I mean it's clear that Pervaiz Hoodhboy has no clue what he's talking about. He should stick to physics. I mean, that's his field. I'm not sure he's good in that too. Maybe that's why he does this nonsense. But he should stick to that. Maybe he's good there. I don't know. I haven't heard of his physics. Perhaps that's rubbish too, like his takes on everything else. But he should stick there. Let the adults, let the people who are already knowledgeable about these matters do this, and you go and get breastfed. Pervaiz Hoodhboy. Yeah, so that's all for this video. I will not make more videos on Pervaiz Hoodhboy. He's a complete idiot. I mean, I swear, when I listen to his videos, you know, it's cringe. I can't even stand through his lecture due to the absurdities and nonsense in it. So, thank you, and that's all for this video. Yeah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.